Now we're standing in front of La Défense, Paris Business Center. As we can see that everyone is working in their bureau right now. They are mostly white-collar employees who are going to work overtime until 8 or 9 o'clock.
According to the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work, in 2002, the European Commission estimated the annual economic cost of work stress in European Union was 20 billion euros. In another study of Land Johnson evaluated the cost associated to the cardiovascular diseases caused by work stress amount to approximately 4% of all the costs attributable to occupational accidents and ill health in some Nordic countries. Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Could you please
Hi,
answer
nice
us some of the questions about the psychological risks at work? So the first question
Yeah,
is,
sure.
what are the most frequent psychological risks that we could meet at the workplace?
Well, I suppose it's quite common for people to experience psychological difficulties at workplace, and lots of people often experience lots of stress from work, and also that could lead to them experiencing symptoms of depression, symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of panic attacks.
Okay.
So there could be potentially lots of psychological risks at workplace.
Okay. So what are the consequences of those psychological risks at workplace?
I suppose those stress, anxiety and depression that people could experience at workplace can directly impact on their work performance and impact on their how they perform at work, and also it could affect in their other aspects of life as well.
Okay. And for employees, what are the significant manifestations of these psychological risks or problems at work?
Well, I think there could be lots of reasons. So sometimes, quite often, people feel that there's the work environment quite important. Sometimes whether a good teamwork, whether their relationship with their colleagues can directly impact on their psychological well-being, and also in terms of workload as well, whether there's appropriate workload they are able to manage, or whether they will get suitable support around work as well. That's all could impact on, lead to whether they experience any symptoms of psychological problems.
Yes.
And like I said previously, it then can impact on their performance and their lifestyle, their relationships with other people, their social life.
Okay. For companies, could these psychological problems affect the performance for companies?
Yeah, I would think so, definitely. Quite often I hear people talk about that they feel really difficult to be at workplace if it's really stressful and if they don't get enough support.
Yes.
And I quite often hear people say that their concentrations are sometimes affected. They find it really difficult to concentrate. They find their memory much worse than they would have had, and that could lead them to not being able to perform as well as they would have done, and not being able to meet the deadlines, and also could affect the results that we want to produce as well. I suppose that can have a huge impact on for the companies as well.
Okay, thank you. And until now, whether some measures are put in practice by a company in Europe to solve these problems of employees?
Well, as far as I'm aware, there's always some companies, especially big companies, are encouraging their staff to improve their psychological well-being, especially at work. So there are some measures done, and lots of HRs offer kind of supports and offer kind of outdoor activities to arrange for their staff. And whereas some small companies may not have done as well as those big companies. They may have not have got resource or time to consider those factors yet.
And for companies, should we come up with a system of psychological risk management for employees in the future?
I think that would be a really great idea.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, there are some measures done in some big companies, but there's definitely rooms for improvement. It's quite important for staff to know where they could get support from in case they are suffering from those difficulties. And it would be quite nice for them to have some resources as well, like booklets, leaflets, something to read on in their spare time about how to deal with their physical symptoms of their problems, what kind of thoughts, negative thoughts when they do experience stress, kind of how they're emotionally, how they could cope with that, and any kind of physical symptom like tension, etc., how they could deal with that in terms of using relaxation techniques. So it will be quite nice for companies to have those resources ready for their staff.
Thank you. So last question. What kind of methodology is considered as the most efficient for psychological problems?
Yeah, so it depends on what type of psychological difficulty they may experience. As in workplace, it's quite common for people to experience stress, depression, anxiety, low mood, self-esteem difficulties. So evidence has shown that cognitive behavioral based interventions can be quite helpful.
Yes.
So I suppose that this approach is basically focusing on the problems happening here and now at the moment, and it's looking at how different symptoms of the problems are happening and linked with each other, causing the vicious cycle of depression, anxiety, or stress. And then it can be looked at what kind of practical tools and techniques can be used to break that vicious cycle by, say, working on their negative thoughts, either about themselves, that they sometimes people tend to have thoughts that I'm not good enough to, I'm not doing well at work. So those working on those negative thoughts. And it could be also looking at physical symptoms as well. For example, some people may experience loss of tension and headache, tiredness. So some type of relaxation might be helpful to help with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
That's okay.
Thank you.
From the previous interview, we can see that psychological risks are becoming a serious issue in sustainable performance for companies. Overtime work seems to be an ordinary fare, so how to deal with these psychological problems in workplace have to be submitted to agenda. So we realized this video in order to find some kinds of ways to help companies to solve this problem.